There's a certain morning stiffness that so many people over 50 know too well. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, put your feet on the floor, and instead of greeting the day with ease, you feel that deep, nagging protest in your knees, hips, or shoulders. For some, it's a dull ache. For others, it's a sharp reminder that something inside isn't working as smoothly as it once did. The shocking truth is that this pain is not simply getting older. It's your body asking for help. And when we ignore that whisper, it often grows into a roar that steals independence, energy, and joy. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Wellness Blueprint Over 50. Today I'll show you how 3 humble minerals, backed by solid science, can help quiet that roar and restore comfort, mobility, and hope. When I think about magnesium, I often remember a patient of mine named Carol. She was 63, retired, and loved gardening. But every morning she woke up with her hands so stiff she could barely hold a cup of tea, let alone tend to her roses. She told me once, "I feel like my joints have turned into rusty hinges." That image stuck with me because it's exactly how magnesium deficiency can feel in the body. The hinges are there, the structure is there, but without the right lubrication and support, every movement creaks, strains, and eventually breaks down. Magnesium is one of those minerals we all know by name, but rarely think about in detail. Yet it's involved in more than 300 processes inside the body, including how our muscles contract and relax, how our nerves send signals, and even how our immune system controls inflammation. Imagine your body as a busy orchestra. If magnesium is the conductor, the music flows smoothly. Without it, the violins play too fast, the trumpets come in late, and the whole performance turns into chaos. That chaos in your body often feels like pain. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Inflammation is the villain behind most joint pain, whether it's arthritis, stiffness, or the soreness that lingers after activity. When inflammation runs wild, it's like a fire smoldering in your joints, slowly damaging cartilage and bone. Magnesium is one of the body's natural fire extinguishers. Research published in the Journal of Nutrition found that people with higher magnesium intake had significantly lower markers of systemic inflammation, including C-reactive protein. That's science confirming what patients like Carol already feel when they add more magnesium to their lives. The fire starts to cool, and movement feels freer. Magnesium also has a fascinating role in protecting cartilage, that soft cushion between bones. Without enough magnesium, calcium can build up where it doesn't belong, including in your joints. Think of it like chalk dust settling into the spaces where smooth motion should happen. That buildup creates friction, discomfort, and stiffness. But when magnesium levels are healthy, calcium is guided back to the bones and teeth, where it strengthens rather than harms. In other words, magnesium is the traffic cop, keeping minerals in their proper lanes so your joints glide instead of grind. Another hidden way magnesium eases joint pain is by calming the muscles that surround those joints. Tight, cramping muscles pull on bones and ligaments, adding to the strain. Many people over 50 have experienced those restless legs at night or sudden calf cramps that wake them from sleep. That's often a magnesium deficiency waving a red flag. By restoring magnesium, muscles relax, tension eases, and the joints themselves no longer carry the full burden of stress. Carol's story is a beautiful example. Once we identified her low magnesium levels, she started eating more foods rich in this mineral. Spinach in her morning omelets, pumpkin seeds as a snack, black beans in her soups, and yes, a little square of dark chocolate with her evening tea. Within a few months, she told me, "Doctor, I can hold my pruning shears again without wincing." It wasn't an overnight miracle, but rather a steady return of strength and flexibility. Her joy in the garden was back, and with it, her independence. The beauty of magnesium is that it's widely available in foods many of us already enjoy. Leafy greens, nuts, seeds, beans, avocados, and whole grains are all abundant sources. Even coffee and dark chocolate carry some. But here's the reality. Studies show that nearly half of adults in the United States don't get enough magnesium daily. Modern farming practices, processed foods, and certain medications can deplete it. So for some people, diet alone may not close the gap. That's where supplements can play a role. But with a word of caution, Too much magnesium from pills can upset digestion or interfere with certain prescriptions, especially for blood pressure or heart rhythm. This is why I always encourage talking to your healthcare provider before adding a supplement. The goal isn't to overload your system, but to restore balance gently, giving your body the tools it has been quietly asking for. There's something empowering about this mineral. It reminds us that joint pain doesn't always mean deterioration or inevitable decline. Sometimes it's about deficiency, something we can actually correct. And deficiencies are not permanent. They are opportunities for renewal. Magnesium is one of those foundational building blocks that, once replenished, can transform how you move, how you rest, and how you experience life. So if you've been waking with stiff knees, if your shoulders crunch when you lift your arms, or if your legs ache at night, consider whether your body is simply calling out for more magnesium. This mineral doesn't just reduce inflammation and ease discomfort. It whispers to your muscles to let go, protects your cartilage from wearing down too quickly, and helps restore a sense of smoothness to the everyday movements that matter most. Climbing stairs, tying your shoes, reaching for a hug. Carol once told me that what magnesium gave her wasn't just arthritis pain relief. It was the return of hope, the belief that her body could still heal, even in her 60s. That's the gift I want for you, too. With small steps, a handful of nuts, a plate of greens, mindful hydration, perhaps a gentle supplement under guidance, you can begin to cool the fires of inflammation, soften the stiffness, and reclaim your independence. Your body is always trying to heal. Magnesium simply gives it the chance. If magnesium is the quiet conductor that keeps the orchestra of your body in harmony, zinc is the craftsman working backstage, repairing the instruments so they can keep playing. Without him, the violins would lose their strings, the drums would tear, and before long the music would collapse into silence. That's what happens when the body doesn't get enough zinc. The repair crews slow down, the damage lingers, and the joints ache louder and longer. I once cared for a gentleman named Harold, 71 years old, who had lived with rheumatoid arthritis for more than a decade. His mornings were the hardest. He described his fingers as frozen twigs that refused to bend until nearly lunchtime. He had tried medications and some helped, but the flare-ups still came. When we tested his blood, his zinc levels were on the low side. Harold was surprised. "Zinc? Isn't that just for colds?" he asked. And that's a common misconception. Yes, zinc is famous for supporting the immune system and shortening the duration of colds, but its real influence reaches much deeper, especially when it comes to joints. You see, zinc is essential for tissue repair. Every day our bodies are tearing down and building back up tiny parts of our joints, ligaments, and cartilage. It's like a constant construction site. Without enough zinc, there simply aren't enough workers on the job. The damage piles up faster than it can be repaired, leaving us with swelling, stiffness, and pain. This is particularly important in conditions like osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, where inflammation is constantly gnawing away at tissues. In those cases, zinc isn't just a worker, it's also a foreman, directing the immune system to calm down when it gets too aggressive. Autoimmune arthritis is like having a construction crew that starts smashing the walls instead of fixing them. Zinc steps in and tells them, focus, repair, don't destroy. Science backs this up. A study published in Biological Trace Element Research found that patients with rheumatoid arthritis often had significantly lower zinc levels than healthy individuals, and those with the lowest levels tended to experience more severe symptoms. This isn't just a coincidence. It's evidence that zinc plays a regulating role in the dance between inflammation and healing. There's another layer to zinc's story, one that speaks directly to the cushion inside your joints. Collagen. Collagen is that springy, flexible protein that makes cartilage resilient, so your knees bend without grinding and your hips rotate without catching. Zinc is a key ingredient in the recipe for collagen production. Without it, the cartilage becomes thinner, less elastic, and more prone to damage. With it, the body has what it needs to build strong, resilient joint cushions. Harold's case was a turning point. We worked together to increase his zinc intake through food. Lean beef a couple of times a week, chicken stews, a handful of cashews in the afternoon, and pumpkin seeds sprinkled over his salads. Because he didn't enjoy shellfish, we skipped oysters. But for many people, they are the richest source of zinc available. Within 2 months, Harold told me he could open a jar in the morning without having to soak his hands in hot water first. It wasn't a miracle cure, but it was progress. And progress for someone living with daily joint pain feels like a miracle in itself. Of course, balance is important. Too much zinc can crowd out another mineral called copper and upset digestion. That's why supplements should be approached carefully, usually in small doses, and always with the guidance of a healthcare provider. Food sources are usually the safest, most natural way to restore zinc, and they come with other nutrients that the body needs. One thing I often remind my patients is that absorption matters. Plant-based sources of zinc, such as chickpeas, lentils, and quinoa, are wonderful, but the body doesn't absorb zinc from plants as easily as it does from animal products. That means if you follow a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, you may need to eat more of those foods to meet your needs. And if digestion isn't working well, a common issue as we age, the body may struggle to absorb zinc at all, even if you're eating plenty of it. That's where testing and professional guidance can be invaluable. But here's the most inspiring part. When zinc levels are restored, changes often come surprisingly fast. Some people notice less morning stiffness in a few weeks, others feel their grip strength return. And while the pain may not vanish overnight, it begins to soften, giving way to more flexibility, more energy, and a greater willingness to move again. Harold once told me, "Doctor, it's not just the pain relief, it's that I feel useful again. I can button my shirt without asking my wife for help." That moment, the return of independence, dignity, and confidence, is what zinc helped give back to him. And that's the kind of transformation that no medication alone can promise. So when you think of zinc, don't just think about cold season. Think about it as a guardian of your joints, a quiet craftsman repairing damage, calming inflammation, and weaving collagen back into the cushions that keep you moving. Think of it as one of the missing puzzle pieces that, once restored, can help you regain not only motion, but also the freedom and joy that come with it. Boron is a quiet mineral, one that rarely makes the headlines or gets much attention in the doctor's office. Yet in the story of joint health, it is often the unsung hero, the stagehand who keeps the spotlight focused, the cables secure, and the curtains lifting on time. Without that stagehand, the entire show falters. And in your body, without boron, the careful balance of minerals and bone metabolism begins to stumble. I recall meeting a woman named Ellen, 68, who had been battling relentless stiffness in her hips. She told me, "Doctor, I feel like I'm turning into stone." She had tried stretching, physical therapy, even some over-the-counter arthritis remedies, but nothing seemed to keep the ache at bay. When we looked at her diet, it was clear she wasn't getting many natural sources of boron. She was skeptical at first. After all, who had ever told her boron mattered? Yet within months of adding boron-rich foods like dried fruits and nuts into her daily routine, she reported a remarkable shift. "I don't creak like I used to. Walking feels lighter, freer." So what makes boron so special? First, it acts like a mineral manager. Calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus are the stars when it comes to bone and joint strength. But boron is the backstage coordinator, making sure those stars are in the right place at the right time. Without boron, much of the calcium we take in through food or supplements can't be fully utilized. It's like pouring expensive paint into a bucket with holes. Most of it never reaches the canvas. Boron plugs those holes, helping your body hold on to and properly use the minerals that matter most for strong bones and smooth joints. Boron also plays a direct role in taming inflammation, that ever-present fire we spoke about earlier. Studies have shown that boron intake can lower levels of inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and tumor necrosis factor alpha. Those are scientific terms, but think of them as alarm bells ringing throughout your body, telling your immune system to stay in attack mode. When those bells quiet down, the body can shift from destruction back to repair. The result? Less swelling, less pain, more ease of movement. What fascinated me most when I began studying boron was the population data. In regions of the world where boron intake from soil and food is naturally higher, arthritis rates are astonishingly low, sometimes under 10%. Compare that to areas where boron intake is minimal, and arthritis affects more than half the population. That isn't just coincidence. That is nature whispering to us that boron has a protective role we can't afford to overlook. And then there's flexibility. People who consume enough boron often describe their bodies as less stiff, more supple. Science explains this by showing that boron helps improve the integration of calcium into bones while supporting vitamin D metabolism. Stronger bones mean less strain on joints, and better vitamin D utilization means a more balanced immune system. For someone like Ellen, that translated into easier walks around her neighborhood and the joy of dancing again at her granddaughter's wedding. She told me later, with tears in her eyes, "I thought those days of moving freely were behind me. Boron gave me a piece of my life back." Now, how do you get boron? Thankfully, it doesn't require exotic powders or rare supplements. Boron hides in everyday foods that many of us already enjoy. Dried fruits like prunes, raisins, and apricots are rich in it. Nuts, especially almonds and walnuts, are excellent sources. You'll find boron in avocados, apples, pears, grapes, broccoli, carrots, and potatoes. Even coffee and wine carry some, which might make you smile the next time you sip. By simply adding a handful of dried fruit, a serving of vegetables, or a few nuts to your day, you are feeding your joints something they crave. For those who may not get enough from diet alone, small supplemental doses of boron, usually 3 to 6 milligrams daily, can be helpful. But remember, more isn't better. Boron works like seasoning in a recipe. Just a pinch brings everything together, but too much can overpower the dish. Always check with your healthcare provider before starting supplements, especially if you're already taking medications. The inspiring part is how quickly some people feel the difference once boron enters their routine. Ellen noticed changes within weeks, though for others it may take a bit longer. The key is patience and consistency. Healing is rarely about dramatic overnight transformations. It's about small, steady shifts that add up to big wins. Less stiffness in the morning, less hesitation to climb the stairs, more confidence bending down to tie your shoes. What boron teaches us is that sometimes the answers to chronic pain aren't about stronger drugs or invasive procedures. Sometimes they lie in quiet, overlooked nutrients that whisper rather than shout. When you listen to that whisper, when you give your body what it has been silently missing, you discover that healing was always possible. It was just waiting for the right support. So if you've been feeling stuck, heavy, or worn down by joint pain, don't overlook boron. It may not be famous, but it has the power to ease the fire of inflammation, strengthen your bones, and help your body hold on to the minerals that keep you moving with freedom. It is, in many ways, the backstage hero ensuring that the show, your life, your independence, your joy, goes on without interruption. So here's the truth. Your joints are not doomed to creak and ache as the years go by. Magnesium, zinc, and boron, 3 humble minerals, can reduce inflammation, rebuild strength, and restore ease to your every movement. Healing is never about chasing perfection. It's about giving your body the building blocks it's been quietly asking for. Remember, change doesn't stop at 50, 60, or even 80. It begins wherever you are, with one small step. I'm Dr. Brian, and thank you for joining me on Wellness Blueprint Over 50. Stay hopeful, stay moving, and stay well.